As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, Elliot found himself wandering through the quaint streets of a town he'd never visited before. The cobblestone paths glistened with recent rain, reflecting the warm glow of street lamps that flickered to life in the deepening twilight. A gentle breeze carried the scent of petrichor and distant sea salt, stirring memories he couldn't quite grasp. Lost in thought, Elliot almost missed the peculiar golden light emanating from a shop window tucked between two larger buildings. It pulsed softly, like a beacon calling out to him through the misty evening air. Intrigued, he approached the weathered storefront, its wooden sign creaking gently in the breeze. Mr. Lawson's Curiosities. The door chimed softly as Elliot stepped inside, enveloped by the warm, dusty scent of old books and polished wood. Shelves lined the walls, packed with an eclectic array of items that seemed to whisper stories of their own. Crystal vases caught the light, sending prisms dancing across faded maps and intricate clockwork mechanisms. In one corner, a gramophone stood sentinel, its brass horn gleaming in the soft light. "Welcome, young man," came a gentle voice from behind the counter. "I've been expecting you." Elliot turned to find an elderly gentleman with twinkling eyes and a salt and pepper beard smiling at him. "I'm Mr. Lawson," he said, extending a hand, "and you must be Elliot." Taken aback, Elliot shook the offered hand. "How did you know my name?" Mr. Lawson's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Oh, the shop has its ways of knowing who needs to find it. Why don't you have a look around? I'm sure there's something here meant just for you." Still puzzled, Elliot began to explore the shop, running his fingers along the spines of leather-bound books and examining curios that seemed to come from every corner of the world. As he reached a shelf near the back, something caught his eye, a small, ornate frame holding what appeared to be an old photograph. Carefully, Elliot lifted the frame, wiping away a thin layer of dust with his sleeve. His breath caught in his throat as he recognized the scene, a seaside fair with colorful tents and twinkling lights strung between poles. But it wasn't just any fair. It was from his hometown, a place he hadn't visited in years. As he studied the photograph more closely, his heart began to race. There, in the foreground, was a younger version of himself, laughing as he painted a caricature, and beside him, her eyes bright with mirth, was Clara, his first love, the girl he'd left behind when he moved away to pursue his writing career. "Ah, you found it," Mr. Lawson said, appearing at Elliot's elbow. "I wondered when you'd come for that one." Elliot looked up, confusion etched on his face. "But how—" "This photo, it's from my past. How did it end up here?" Mr. Lawson's eyes twinkled mysteriously. "Some things have a way of finding their way to where they're needed most. Tell me, Elliot, do you remember that night?" As if in response to the question, the photograph began to emit a soft, golden glow. Elliot gasped, nearly dropping the frame. The light pulsed gently, and to his amazement, the figures in the photograph began to move. He watched, transfixed, as the scene came to life before his eyes. The younger Elliot in the photo laughed silently, his brush moving across the paper as he captured Clara's likeness in exaggerated strokes. Clara's eyes danced with joy, her hair caught by the sea breeze as she posed dramatically. The memory washed over Elliot like a warm wave. He could almost smell the cotton candy and hear the distant calliope music. It had been the night they first met, both of them working summer jobs at the fair. He'd been instantly captivated by her free spirit and artistic soul. Carefully, Elliot lifted the frame, wiping away a thin layer of dust with his sleeve. His breath caught in his throat as he recognized the scene, a seaside fair with colorful tents and twinkling lights strung between poles. But it wasn't just any fair. It was from his hometown, a place he hadn't visited in years. As he studied the photograph more closely, his heart began to race. There, in the foreground, was a younger version of himself, laughing as he painted a caricature, and beside him, her eyes bright with mirth, was Clara, his first love, the girl he'd left behind when he moved away to pursue his writing career. "Ah, you've found it," Mr. Lawson said, appearing at Elliot's elbow. "I wondered when you'd come for that one." Elliot looked up, confusion etched on his face. "But how—" "This photo, it's from my past. How did it end up here?" Mr. Lawson's eyes twinkled mysteriously. "Some things have a way of finding their way to where they're needed most. Tell me, Elliot, do you remember that night?" As if in response to the question, the photograph began to emit a soft, golden glow. Elliot gasped, nearly dropping the frame. The light pulsed gently, and to his amazement, the figures in the photograph began to move. He watched, transfixed, as the scene came to life before his eyes. The younger Elliot in the photo laughed silently, his brush moving across the paper as he captured Clara's likeness in exaggerated strokes. Clara's eyes danced with joy, her hair caught by the sea breeze as she posed dramatically. The memory washed over Elliot like a warm wave. He could almost smell the cotton candy and hear the distant calliope music. It had been the night they first met, both of them working summer jobs at the fair. He'd been instantly captivated by her free spirit and artistic soul. Rachel's expression softened. "Maybe you do, Elle. You've been stuck in a rut with your writing lately. Perhaps this is the universe giving you a nudge." Mr. Lawson nodded approvingly. "Your sister is wise, Elliot. The heart knows what it needs, even when the mind forgets." Elliot looked between the photograph, his sister, and the enigmatic shop owner. The golden light pulsed once more, as if in encouragement. He took a deep breath, feeling a spark of excitement he hadn't experienced in years. "You're right," he said, a smile spreading across his face. "It's time I followed this magic and saw where it leads. I need to find Clara." Rachel squeezed his arm supportively. "I think that's a wonderful idea. Who knows what might happen?" As they prepared to leave, Mr. Lawson carefully wrapped the photograph in soft cloth. "Remember, Elliot," he said, handing over the package, "true magic isn't just in objects or memories. It's in the courage to follow your heart." With a final nod of gratitude, Elliot and Rachel stepped out into the night, the wrapped photograph tucked safely under Elliot's arm. As they walked away, Elliot glanced back, but to his astonishment, the shop had vanished, leaving only a blank wall between two buildings. He blinked in disbelief, but Rachel just laughed softly. "Come on, dreamer," she said, linking her arm through his. "You've got a journey to plan." As they headed home, Elliot felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the photograph's glow. For the first time in years, he felt the stirring of a new story, one that was about to unfold in his own life. Elliot's heart fluttered with anticipation as he stepped off the bus, the salty sea breeze tousling his hair. The familiar scent of his coastal hometown filled his lungs, bringing with it a flood of memories. He reached into his pocket, feeling the warmth of the magical photograph against his fingertips. As he drew closer to the beach, the glow intensified, pulsing gently like a beacon guiding him home. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold that mirrored the photograph's ethereal light. Elliot's footsteps quickened as he followed the shoreline, memories of summers past playing like a gentle melody in his mind. The old fairground, where he had first met Clara, came into view. But it was different now. Gone were the creaking rides and cotton candy stands. In their place stood a modern building with large windows and colorful murals adorning its walls. Elliot approached, his curiosity piqued by the transformation. A sign above the entrance read, "Seaside Art Center." Could this be where the photograph was leading him? He peered through one of the windows, and his breath caught in his throat. There, in a room filled with easels and bright canvases, stood Clara. She was older now, her chestnut hair streaked with strands of silver, but her eyes still sparkled with the same vibrant energy he remembered. Clara moved gracefully among her students, young and old alike, offering gentle guidance and encouragement. Elliot watched, mesmerized, as she helped a little girl mix colors on her palette. Suddenly, the photograph in his pocket grew warmer. Elliot pulled it out, gasping softly as the image began to move. He saw himself and Clara, young and carefree, laughing as they painted caricatures at the fair. The memory was so vivid, he could almost hear the tinkling of the carousel music and smell the sweet aroma of funnel cakes. As the vision faded, Elliot looked up to find Clara staring directly at him through the window. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to stand still. The photograph in his hand released a shower of golden sparkles, swirling around him like fireflies in a summer evening. Clara's eyes widened in recognition. She excused herself from her class and hurried to the door. Elliot's heart raced as she stepped outside, her face a mixture of surprise and wonder. "Elliot?" she said, her voice soft and tinged with disbelief. "Is it really you?" He nodded, unable to find words for a moment. "Hello, Clara," he finally managed, his voice thick with emotion. They stood there, drinking in the sight of each other, years of separation melting away like morning mist under the sun. Clara's eyes fell to the photograph in Elliot's hand, still faintly glowing. "What's that?" she asked, curiosity evident in her tone. Elliot held it out to her. "A magical reminder of our past," he said, with a small smile, "and perhaps a guide to our future." As Clara's fingers brushed the photograph, it shimmered once more, showing them glimpses of shared memories. Their first kiss on the Ferris wheel, long walks on the beach, dreams whispered under starlit skies. Tears glistened in Clara's eyes as the images faded. "I can't believe you're here," she whispered, "after all this time." They found a quiet spot on the beach, away from the art center, and sat on the soft sand. The setting sun cast long shadows across the water as they began to share stories of their lives since parting. Elliot spoke of his writing career, the novels he'd published, and the persistent feeling that something was missing from his life. Clara told him about her journey as an artist, her travels, and how she'd eventually returned to their hometown to teach. "I always hoped you'd come back someday," Clara admitted, her fingers tracing patterns in the sand. "I just never imagined it would be like this." Elliot smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the photograph's magic. "I think I was always meant to find my way back to you," he said softly. "It just took a little nudge from the universe and a mysterious antique shop owner." They laughed together, the sound mingling with the gentle lapping of waves on the shore. As they talked, the magical photograph's glow began to fade, its purpose fulfilled. But the warmth it had kindled between them remained, a gentle ember of renewed connection. As twilight deepened into night, Elliot and Clara stood, brushing sand from their clothes. The moon had risen, casting a silvery path across the water. Without a word, they began to walk along the shoreline, their steps in perfect sync. "What happens now?" Clara asked, her voice barely audible above the whisper of the sea. Elliot reached for her hand, entwining their fingers. The touch was both familiar and new, a bridge between past and present. "I'm not sure," he replied honestly, "but I know I don't want to leave again, not without seeing where this leads." Clara squeezed his hand, a smile lighting up her face. "I'd like that," she said. "We have a lot of catching up to do." As they walked, they began to plan, tentatively at first, then with growing excitement. Elliot spoke of renting a small cottage by the sea where he could write and Clara could paint. They imagined quiet evenings spent sharing their art, rediscovering each other's passions and dreams. The magical photograph had brought them together again, but it was their choice to build something new. With each step along the moonlit beach, they were creating fresh memories, weaving a tapestry of possibility that stretched out before them like the endless horizon. As the night deepened and stars twinkled overhead, Elliot and Clara's laughter echoed across the water. They were no longer bound by the past or uncertain about the future. Instead, they walked hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever adventures lay ahead, knowing that the most magical journey of all was the one they would take together. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. We bring you a new story every day, and your support means the world to us. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what you think. See you in the next story. Stay inspired and take care.